Welcome to the Growler, a Who Dat podcast hosted by Paul Dana and other bald friends like Mo Egger, Dave Nanametz, home of all your Bengals breaks, takes. Welcome to the Growler.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Balls Don't Lie. Paul Dana Jr., Jay Morrison, excited to be with you on a Tuesday. What's up, Jay?
80 degrees in late October. This is just incredible. I know the temperature of the team is at the greatest right now. We will get into that, but yeah, doing well today. Really happy about these weird spikes in temperature. It's extending summer a little bit longer.
The weather shall carry you through these dark
Yes.
times, Jay, is our message to Bengals fans. You know, we talk a lot about how on this show we try to keep you informed. We try to keep you entertained. We also sometimes just try to be therapeutic. You know, this feels like a couch episode, Jay. Yeah. This is one of those where everybody lay down, stare at the ceiling, talk about your childhood and how you just wanted to get one more hug. Because it feels like right now the Bengals are the dad that just won't give you a hug. 4 times you've shown up at his house this year, and he's never given you a hug. He's gone to the back with the bottle.
He's not even sending birthday cards.
Not sending birthday cards. Not even buying. There's no ponies, no money. You just show up, and you never even see him, and then you leave sad. But we're here to tell you it's okay. Come to our house, all right?
Okay.
Come to the Growler house, right? We are here to help you. We're here to give you a hug. Jay and I, were one big hug. And that's what they've often said about Mo Egger, our guest on today's show. He's like one big hug. In fact, I have to think if I've ever actually hugged Mo. I have to think about that long. I don't think so. Maybe not much of a hugger. So maybe that's a bad example, but he is a great example of a great guest. We're going to get to Mo. I'm excited, Jay. With Mo, you know what I'm doing? I've got the wheel of topics because there are too many topics, Jay.
Right.
There were too many topics I wanted to get to about the offense alone with Mo that I had to write them all down on a wheel. We spin it and we see where it takes us. We'll get to that with Mo in a little bit. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And he's a pro. He doesn't need a heads up on what we're going to talk about. You just spin the wheel, whatever pops up, and he's ready. He has thoughts on all of it.
He's done a lot of hours of radio about this already. And so just leaning right into what he's got. He's always got him ready to go. Just fired up in the jukebox. A7, right? Wasting Joe Burrow. There it is. Okay. On that note, we've got plenty more we're going to get to. You're going to hear from Lou Anarumo on the state of the defense. We're going to talk more about state of the defense. You're going to hear from Evan McPherson and Darrin Simmons on some of his struggles, including his Pro Bowl pre-games. We'll get to that. Jay will have stats, of course. We will have Growler bet answers. You guys were on point with your subject headers again. A lot of good ones there, and I think would have made our good friend Jeff Hobson proud because a lot of Eagles references and lyrics were a part of this week's subject header, so I appreciated that. We're going to get to RPBs, RBs, all of the stuff that you're used to getting from us. Want to thank everybody again that came out to our live show at BetMGM, Nation Kitchen and Bar at the Banks. Such a great time down there. So many TVs, so many good drinks were had. People watching the games and listening to us. It was so much fun. You can go down there for any big game if you want to reserve a table or whatever. NationKitchenandBar.com. Click to reserve a table, and you always have a space with good food, good drink, good views of the game right downtown on the bank. So make sure you come and check us out. We'll have 2 shows in November. We're still working out the specific details on that. You'll hear about that very soon. But really excited about what we've got going on with that. I did want to bring you, I mentioned this the other day before we get into this show here, that Tim Krumrie told the greatest story. And I just was like, you know what? Let's just play it for the people. This was, I went ahead and clipped out. This was Tim Krumrie's story. He had some before this, but this is where he starts talking about the scene in the locker room from the Super Bowl when he had broken his leg in ridiculous and tibia and fibia and ankle and every piece of it. And he's in there and he's supposed to go to the hospital, but he doesn't want to go to the hospital. And this is his scene, his taking us behind those scenes of what that was like. This is Tim Krumrie from our live show.
I'm sitting there and I said, I want to watch the team. And it was halftime, watch the game. Denver came in and all the guys, what the heck are you doing sitting here? Or laying here. I go, I want to watch you guys give me a Super Bowl ring. So they said, here's the situation. I said, well, I want a TV and I want beer.
Anybody else watching this?
And everybody knows this name by Jeff Ruby. He came in and said he was with the Cincinnati medical department and wanted to get to Tim Krumrie. Here he comes with beer and a TV. So Jeff Ruby did that. And actually, the next story is the TV came and they wanted to set my leg. And they said, I said, well, we're going to have to give you medicine, Tim, or painkillers to set the leg. I said, well, I'll remember the game, watch it on TV if you set you again the painkillers. I said, no, you won't remember it. I said, set it. I said, what did the Cowboys do? Give me a bullet. He said, I can't give you a bullet. Give me a towel. And I bit on the towel, and he set the leg.
That is the toughest thing I've ever heard in person.
That is unbelievable. That's a cowboy way.
Wow.
That's the cowboy way. Set the leg. Forget sweep the leg. Okay. You know, it was the 80s, right? Sweep the leg. Karate Kid was a thing back then. Set the leg. I think that's the new thing. Whenever you got to go through something tough in your life, set the leg. All right. Just amazing.
You know how weak I am. I'm just the idea of putting a towel in your mouth and biting it is giving me goosebumps right now. That sounds awful in and of itself without even setting the leg.
You had a problem with the towel part.
Yes.
I love it. All right. We got a bunch of stuff to get to. Let's dive in. News from Monday, T and Orlando Brown day to day, get him through the week. Sounds like this week is going to be a lot like last week for Orlando Brown. So I don't know if that's great news for him getting through the game against the Raiders, considering he couldn't finish and had got through about half the plays last week against Philadelphia. We'll see more with T Higgins in his quad. Obviously, you know, you don't know how long those things take to fully get back or if he'll need an extra week. They're going from the Raiders game to a massive Thursday night game against the Ravens on that Thursday. So I mean, you're talking about the season hanging in the balance in a lot of ways, specifically against the Ravens, who will have a chance to potentially deliver a knockout blow to this franchise at that point. So we'll see where they're at in terms of getting him back. There's going to be a Simpsons game alternate broadcast of the Dallas Bengals Monday Night Football game, if that does anything for you. They're on Team Bart, and the Cowboys are on Team Homer, which they said they're not actually the coaches, so don't think that they're doing Team Homer because he is Mike McCarthy. But it's going to be some sort of one of these alternate broadcasts. The Hard Knocks cameras are starting to show up. You're starting to see there's some background starting to happen with those. Not a ton of other news. We'll get into some of the other stuff that was said. We talked to Zach Taylor, Lou Anarumo, Darrin Simmons, Evan McPherson, a few others. Von Bell turned down an interview. We'll get to that type of stuff as we kind of go through. Trade deadline is 1 week away, Jay.
Yeah.
They're not going to wave the white flag. You know, even if they lose to Vegas and fall to 3-6, they're not going to wave the white flag on the season, which is what trading T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson would mean. So for those asking for that, don't hold your breath on that. It's just not something you're going to see them do. But in acquiring, there's not going to be acquiring because they're not going to be giving up draft picks. And certainly you wouldn't want to if you were 3-6 or even at 4-5 at this point, knowing what we've seen from them. I know that people will say, I don't know that there's help that can change this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're not adding it's Christian McCaffrey to send this thing with rocket fuel to the moon. Ain't walking through that door or even available for the current setup of this club. That's the unfortunate part of where they're at, and kind of speaks to how deep in the hole they are organizationally right now.
Yeah,
Do you see it different, or
no? I totally
Yeah.
agree. I say
Yeah.
the only reason, I think the only way we see them do something is if they win that game against the Raiders and there's an injury, another injury on the offensive line. If something were to happen to Trey, I mean, can you imagine this pass rush without Trey Hendrickson? Well, we saw it. We actually did see it last week because there was no Trey Hendrickson. I mean, he played obviously, but he was not the Trey Hendrickson that we're used to seeing, and that it was just one of the worst defensive line pass rush games that this group has had since Lou's been here. So that's the only way I could see them kind of stepping out of their comfort zone and be willing to go acquire someone and give up some picks, is if there's an injury. And Zach said it yesterday. He wasn't speaking for the front office, but he said we're preparing to coach the team we've got.
Yeah, and I've mentioned offensive tackle. That does, just because the depth is so depleted there.
Right.
I still don't think it would be a major name or anything like that, but it could be somebody who maybe be available, who'd be considered serviceable, that could plug in and be better, or at least a better swing tackle than what would be an option behind Cody Ford, or better than Cody Ford. I mean, that's the level that you're talking about. There's not, Cam Robinson sounds great, but I don't see them paying half of that salary for him just for a backup option, when they just be saying go with Cody Ford. And all these other positions, they have young players they have invested in that aren't paying off, that they would say now it's that guy's time. Like that's where they would say they have young players in the pipeline. They're not going to try to band-aid a team that needs more than a band-aid, right?
Yeah.
And so as far as the trade deadline goes, I think that's the team view sits right now. I want to talk about this defense, and which I know it's like people are like, I thought this was supposed to be a hug, Paul. Look, we got to talk about the childhood, okay? We got to talk about what happened to you if we're going to get you past it, okay? So that's why we're going to lead off with the defense. Let's start. I had a couple of questions. This was about 16 minutes into a 20-something conversation with Lou Anarumo that was very much, why is all of this bad? Over and over again in different ways, was kind of how every question sort of felt, as we kept peppering him with all of the questions you guys have wanted to know and are asking right now. I have a story up on The Athletic about everything that's gone sideways and pinpointing some of the plays that are kind of small examples of the bigger issues. Lou Anarumo talking about a lot of those, answering some of these questions you guys have, whether it be about Miles Murphy or Jordan Battle, or why they don't blitz more, or the pass rush, all of these things that have been bad, and try to get to the bottom of it. But I kind of ended up at this with a big picture from Lou Anarumo, and this is what he had to say.
Lou, you talked about having a meeting that was a good meeting today. Yeah. Did you feel like a tone or a messaging needed to change in that?
No, I think our guys, that's one thing about our guys. It's not frustrating. It's great. We always go out there and we have good practices. It's not like we're out there, where I'm coming in saying, man, that was bad. We're not that way as a team, both on offense and on defense. We practice well. The guys are always talking football on the side. To me, it was a matter of, from my meeting with them, is just, hey, let's not worry about anything other than beating the Raiders this week. Don't listen to the odds of this. All that doesn't matter right now until we win a game here at home. Get that out of the way, and then proceed from there. We have a great group of guys, and I said I want to make sure that I want to see over the top guys working together. Linebackers talking to DBs. D-line talking to line, just communication in practice, together in the meetings. We've always been really good at that, and I want to make sure it goes even higher this week, so that we go out there as a unit that's ready to play, and not that we weren't last week, but really just focused on all of the little details, so that can hopefully make us more consistent.
You may have partially answered this just now, but I mean, what makes you believe that you guys can have a season where games like yesterday don't happen again at this point?
I mean, you got to believe that you're going to keep getting better, and you're going to put some of those mistakes behind you. I think that's what we're always striving for. And I think it's a good football team that we played, and we're going to play more good teams coming up. So I have faith in our guys. I have faith in our team and our coaches, and just know we're never going to stop fighting.
They're never going to stop fighting, but belief, faith that it's going to get better is where it's at, and that is not a great place to be. There's no button. There is no arrow you can point to right now that you can say this is why it's going to be better. There was before. It was everybody's hurt on the D line, whatever. There isn't anything now. This is what they built, and you hear it there. It's just, hey, we have to believe that if we keep coaching it and focusing week to week, that it will get better. And that's where they're at. Belief and hope.
Yeah. I mean, it's a step above, well, hope is not a plan. And the problem is you're not looking at one guy, two guys that you need the light to go on. There's a bunch. There's all those young guys. They're just not getting what they thought they would be getting at this point in their career. And, I don't know how much of it is scheme versus just the players are not playing the way that they need them to play. I mean, look, I talked about it before, the lack of a pass rush against the Eagles on Sunday. The Eagles had two starting offensive linemen out, and the Bengals still could not get anywhere near Jalen Hurts. I know a lot of people are like, well, why didn't you blitz more? Lou only blitzed on 6 plays. Well, they only had 21 dropbacks, so that's still 20%. That's not that far off of what they typically do. But the other part was the Eagles they didn't get the Eagles in obvious passing situations. And the Eagles are so good against the run, and that kind of handcuffed them about you don't want to be blitzing when it ends up being a run and the guy breaks it for an explosive. And then when they did get them in obvious passing situations, as you wrote about, the 3rd and 16, and you got a guy wide open in the middle of the zone for an easy completion. It's the communication thing that was so much a part of last year's struggles is better. It's still there at times, but it's better. But now you've got all these other things going on too, and it's almost better to have one major issue that you need to fix as opposed to trying to put all these little fires that just keep cropping up all over the place.
Yeah, that to me was in the rewatch and kind of taking a bigger picture look at what went on in this game and has gone on all season. It's not the yards or even the points. It's how damn easy it is.
Yeah.
For the opposing team, whether it be the way teams could run the ball with ease, specifically earlier in the year, and they've kind of gotten better at that where it's not killing them, but still Saquon was still getting efficient runs consistently, even when they were slowing him down. They wasn't getting the explosives, but he was getting consistent enough runs, right? I mean, they did okay on him. But the passes, every time he would drop backs, I mean, the 3rd and 16, and I asked Lou specifically about that, and he said, well, in hindsight, yeah, he'd love to have that call back. There's just a massive gap right at the sticks, 16 yards down the field between 4 of your core guys, like that have been in this system: Von Bell, Cam Taylor-Britt, Jermaine Pratt, Akeem Davis-Gaither, forming a diamond of suck, right? Like of just massive space for A.J. Brown. No cute route, just a run, turn around, catch a ball untouched, and have time to back up even further to get more yards. Like, there's just no way that group of people who have been here, been in this system, veterans, are allowing that to happen. And a veteran coordinator, and to me that it does fall back. I mean, that look, inevitably, these are guys that have been in the system and supposedly know what they're doing. If they haven't been coached right to do it by now, then it's the coach's fault. If the call is bad, the call is bad. If they're executing it correctly, whatever's going on, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all off. But stuff like that, you have plays where you have 2 guys. I called it the double mailbox. So when a guy mailboxes, when he puts his hand up in the air because he's like, holy crap, trying to get the attention of the quarterback. Look how open I am. There was a double mailbox. A.J. Brown running free because Cam Taylor-Britt basically falls down on the release, running free down the sideline. And here comes the tight end, Calcaterra. He's flying across the middle of the field. He's wide open mailboxing. Like, look at me. You're not going to believe this, Jalen. Jalen takes the one underneath. He probably should have thrown the deeper one. Doesn't matter. They're both wide open chunk plays. He gets 28 yards off of it. But it's like, this is the stuff that was happening over and over again. They would try to go man, and DJ Turner would get beat handily, or they'd be in some kind of a zone concept, and whether it was Josh Newton didn't go outside or Cam Taylor-Britt went the wrong way, like in a bail technique or whatever. Like, it was just over and over and over again. These players who are either high draft picks or veterans that you've invested in are out here not doing anything close to the job correctly. And it's just so easy. And that's what stands out when you watch that. And that's partially pass rush. You know, I mean, we went through some of the numbers, and Jay, you had these stats the other day. I mean, they had PFF had them, I guess, True Media had for 3 dropbacks pressured, 13.6% pressure rate, which is the 3rd lowest by any team in any game this year on a pressure rate. Guess what? The game against Carolina was the 5th lowest by any pressure rate. The NFL average is 34%. Okay. And they weren't, I mean, they're, like you said, their blitz rate was normal. It wasn't like they weren't trying stuff. They would blitz and be late to get there on the blitz. The coverage would be soft, and it'd be pitch and catch easy underneath. That's what they were doing late in the game when Lou Anarumo got more antsy with it. It's just, where's the fix?
Yeah.
And we talked about that in the walkout, but like, it just looks so easy, and they look so far off from the guys that were supposed to be here doing it right that you don't like hope, faith. Like, that's all that I see that you can even have to think that it's going to be different. And it sounds like that's where they're at with it right now.
And you talked about how easy it was at times. I mean, the Eagles' second touchdown, the one they got on the opening drive of the 3rd quarter, Miles Murphy bites, bad eye discipline, bites and doesn't keep contained, and Jalen Hurts just easy scamper out to the right for a 7-yard touchdown. Same thing with the bomb to Devonta Smith. It was Jordan Battle peeking in the backfield, biting on a run fake, and having to play catch up. And he actually did a pretty good job of catching back up to Smith, but he didn't get his head turned around. And it's these little technique things that these guys are in year 2, and that shouldn't be happening. And so it's everything working together. The technique's not there. The scheme isn't working. The communication. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that is basically all you can do at this point is hope and have faith that things are going to get better. I don't know outside of that building how many people are in that boat.
No. And I mean, if you start thinking about it through the lens of who you building around, right? Who talk about the 2025 Bengals defense. Where are you building? Who do you say, man, let's start here and go from there? All the young players you thought you were building around have regressed.
Mm-hmm.
Not just been the same. Cam Taylor-Britt, clear regression. DJ Turner, I mean, at the start of last season, looked like he was going to be a guy and regressed at the end of last year. Well, he hit the wall, right? And he's been okay this year, but he doesn't look like somebody that you can build around. Jordan Battle, he looked like he was turning into a guy last year, and he's regressed.
Yep.
He can't even get on the field, and when he does, he gets thrown over. Joseph Osai, I mean, he had his flashes in 2022 where it looked like he was really coming on, and he could barely get on the field. Now when he does, he has errors, and then he's making some good plays, but he still never became what you thought he was going to become. Miles Murphy, we're still doing what I told you it was going to be the moment he went on IR. He's going to be on IR, and then for 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to have to hear about how he's working his way back still from the injury, and he missed practice time, and you're going to get another half season you're going to be judging off of. Well, he certainly hasn't looked like a guy yet. You hope, believe, but like you're not, all of those guys were meant to make up for the fact that these older players were going to start to look old at some point, including stopgaps like Bell and Sheldon Rankins. Let's be clear. That's what those guys were. They were supposed to be placeholders for these young players coming on, for Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson and Jordan Battle and these types of players to come on and take it over and create that next core of this team. And not happening from any of them. And it exposes your exposes your older guys, your Sam Hubbards. No Miles Murphy. In year 2, Miles Murphy was supposed to be the dude, okay? And Sam Hubbard was supposed to be rotational.
Yeah.
Okay. You knew you weren't supposed to be counting on Sam Hubbard to make all of these passes. You know that. That's why you drafted him. Okay? With the first round pick. There's residual effects, there's ripple effects to all of that stuff. And it goes down the line. And so I don't know. I don't know who you could say if there was one guy you're like, we're building around them. The linebackers, Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, who've been, Pratt gets beat up in coverage a bunch, has his moments, I guess. Those guys, again, if that's what you're building around, you look like that.
Yeah. For 2025, I guess you're building around Trey, but Trey's not going to be here much beyond that.
Trey's getting older. Like at some point, he's not going to be the guy that he is now. At some point, he's going to look like he did yesterday more often.
Mm-hmm.
You knew that. You can't expect him to just clear into his 30s. They're going to be. Who knows? I'm not going to get into the offseason conversation right now, but it just feels like it's the stick of dynamite, and you're just putting your fingers in your ears, and you're pushing it down right now is what it feels like defensively. And I don't know what that looks like and how much of that comes back on Lou Anarumo. I don't know. I don't want to speculate on that right now. I don't have info on that, so I don't want to go down that road as we sit here talking to these mics today. We know traditionally the way that sits, and I don't know how much I don't feel like it's Lou Anarumo and his message being lost or not connecting. And a lot of those guys in there are Lou guys. So are you doing more damage than good if you made a move in terms of you're just looking at this year? How do you get the most out of these guys Sunday? Is it by taking away somebody who has believed in a lot of them and done a lot of good for a ton of their careers? They call him the mad scientist, and they've seen the good from him, and he's been here long enough. I don't know that that's the answer to make them better Sunday against Vegas or Thursday against Baltimore, right? And so, I get frustration, and that might be the end game here, but they're looking at it through a lens of winning this season, and I think you do more damage than good by blowing him up today. Where are you going? Is James Betcher's gonna come in and fix it? I don't know that there's a better answer. And again, that's the ultimate, the old school Mike Zimmer audible shrug. When you don't know, you just shrug, and I don't know that there's a better answer. And so that kind of makes Lou the answer by default, I think, right now. But certainly he's in question in the big picture when you start talking about going forward.
Yeah. And they going back to the hope and the faith, they are playing a bad Raiders offense this week. So you wonder if they can have another game like they did against the Giants and the Browns, and you're not going to think everything's all right. But it is when you do have a bunch of young guys, they do need to see and feel and experience success to start trying to build on that. But if it goes south against them, and then you said it too, that's an elimination game. I know a lot of people have already written off the season and say it's over, but the Baltimore game is the true elimination game, regardless of what happens on Sunday against the Raiders. And that's where Lou has had his moments against the Ravens, but they've also had games where it looked like earlier this year where they score 41 points. And so I don't know what the answer is. I don't think it is blowing it up. It's just not what this franchise does anyhow. But you do almost have to ride it out and just see where this young core goes, if the light can start to come on for multiple guys and see some sort of improvement from where they are now in week 9 to week 18.
It's all they've got is to go with what's here. Again, because there's no easy thing that you can switch. There's no one player you can bring in. There's no one thing you can change. You just got to try to hold on for dear life and win 38-35, which brings us to the offense. And so for that, we're going to flip over and bring in our guy, Mo Egger. All right, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. As always, we appreciate everybody that subscribes to our YouTube channel. Our conversation with Mo is up separately on the YouTube channel, so you can head on over. You can watch that on a separate there. And so we will talk to Mo, and then you can come right back. We'll be right here waiting for you, because we'll kick right back into this. All right. Thanks to Mo for joining. Great as always. You know, a lot. There's just the wheel still has a lot of elements that I couldn't even get to, Jay. Like there's too much. There's too much stuff to try to get to it all. But we did our best.
Yeah, and when you talk about the offense and wasting Burrow, yeah, they had 2 turnovers, which was part of the reason for this. But Darrin Simmons, who you guys are going to hear from in a little bit, posed the question when we talked to him yesterday. He's like, we didn't punt at all on Sunday. He's like, that was the second time this year we have not punted in a game. He's like, have we ever not punted in 2 games in a season? So of course I had to look it up.
There you are.
They have not ever punted or ever gone 2 games in a season without punting. They've played 878 games in franchise history. How many games total do you think they've had no punts?
Oh man, that's a good trivia question. 15?
7. 5 before this year.
Wow.
0.5% of their games they've not had to punt. And they've done it twice in a 5-week span. Yes, again, it wasn't like the Washington game where the offense was just really, really rolling. There were the turnovers that led to the fact that the 4th down stop was basically a 3rd turnover. But you've got an offense capable of doing this and going through games without punting. And it does feel like Burrow's being wasted.
Yeah. That's remarkable. But yeah, I mean, you get minimal possessions, but there's more willingness to go for it on 4th down analytically than there was in the past.
Yeah.
So I wonder how many of those 878 would have punts if they were all played in the current analytical environment where people have a better understanding of winning and losing and what that means. I mean, but still, that is still crazy to think of it that way. Unbelievable. Well, you mentioned Darrin. The other thing happening is offense, defense. Hey, special teams is failing too. Let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's not leave them out. They don't get to miss. We talked to Evan McPherson about his misses. He's missed 3 straight from 50 plus, 1 with a bad hold, and questions about not just Evan, Ryan Rico, Cal Adamitis, who, if there was one player we hadn't really gotten in the crosshairs yet this season, is like, what about the long snapper? Let's make sure we get his due. Everybody kind of getting their piece. So Evan sort of addressed some of his struggles yesterday, talking about confidence and things, and we sort of asked Darrin his thoughts about this. Here's Evan, and then special teams coordinator Darrin Simmons discussing what's going on with Evan McPherson.
Conversations are really good. They're really healthy. Just continuing to, put the trust in me that, they have all the trust in the world that I'm going to go out there and make every kick that they asked me to do. So conversations right now are really good.
Safe to say, though, that you feel good hitting the ball.
Oh, yeah.
The ball.
No, I feel like I'm hitting the ball about as good as I ever have. If you watch me pregame or at practice, you'd say I'd probably be having a Pro Bowl year, but it's just not translating into the game, which is pretty frustrating. So I'll figure that out, and we'll get it straightened up.
Seemed like pregame you did, to your point, hit I think a 60-yarder or 62-yarder.
Yeah, I feel like in pregame I feel really good. Like I said, I haven't missed in pregame. I feel like in 2 or 3 weeks, and feel really good going into the games. Just situations that I get put in. Feel like I haven't been able to come through during the games, which is super frustrating.
What have your conversations been like with Evan, and how confident are you in him still?
Oh, man, I'm still very confident in Evan. I've had a lot of good conversations with Evan, and I still have a supreme level of confidence in him. I think that, over the course of time here, the operation, maybe the snap and hold, hasn't always been perfect. And sometimes I think that has effect on the kicker, and I think it's a constant evolution of us just working on developing consistent operation. So I have zero hesitation in continuing to put him out here in every one of those situations.
So do you more so chalk up the missed kicks from 50 yards out to operation?
I think that's contributed to some of it. There's no question that the one the Baltimore game was not a good hold, was not a very good snap, and it wasn't a good hold. I think that was pretty obvious to everybody. I think the operation wasn't perfect in the Cleveland game, frankly. I still expect Evan to make that kick, although it makes it more difficult. When the snap's not exactly right and the hold's not exactly right, when you're kicking from 50 yards and out, any deviation is going to affect it. That was not the case yesterday. Yesterday the snap was perfect, the hold was perfect, he just missed the kick. But I think sometimes that can have a effect over time, if it's not exactly perfect. This is what, 1, 2, 3. This is the fourth holder Evan's been on in 4 years. So Kevin, Drew, Brad, even Austin McNamara, some of the preseason, way back early on through OTA. So he's had a lot of moving parts, and that's not optimal.
There's Darrin Simmons, Evan McPherson. It's like whatever can go wrong does go wrong right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel like now that part is not there and you don't have confidence, I thought that, I don't know about you, Jay, I thought the part of the mental, difference in just remembering what happened in the past with that hold being a part of this going forward was a really interesting comment that I hadn't, totally weighed into the equation here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for so long it was taken for granted that it was Huber and it was Clark and whoever the kicker was at the time. Nugent was here for a long time. It was just it was a consistent battery and it was a luxury. And now there are a lot of moving parts. And with Cal replacing Clark, and that's 5 holders if you count the Austin McNamara in the preseason. That is a lot that goes into it, and I think what he said too about if they're just off a little bit, that deviation can make a difference. And so I hadn't noticed Cal's snaps being particularly bad, even the one that Ryan Rico dropped against the Ravens, it wasn't perfect, but it's kind of like a receiver. If you touch it, you should catch it. It was on Ryan's hands. But the holding part of it, there's something to that where if you're constantly working with new guys, you just have to get the rhythm down, get the chemistry down. And I don't know that he's fully blaming that for the struggles, but it sounds as though Evan doesn't have any issues with confidence, and Darrin has not lost, and Zach have not lost any confidence in Evan.
I feel okay about Evan McPherson. There's kind of been throughout his career times where it's like almost legend of how he's struggled. I mean, we hear about like him going out and missing every kick in a practice right before, was it the Tennessee game or the AFC Championship game or whatever, and then is great in these games. And he's kind of known for being this like very relaxed guy, able to put stuff behind him and stay cool. You're not worried about him getting into his own head very much. So I think he'll be okay, but I do say that with a question mark at the end. I'm Ron Burgundy. I kind of like, I think he'll be okay, but this is the first time that I think you can start to question like what is going on a little bit. And again, these are 50+ yarders where a slight tug and the extra bit of wind accentuates it looking bad. And I know he talked about how he's crushing everything in pregame. I seen a bunch of people saying, don't act like we weren't there in the stadium. We saw you miss. I guess they're talking about halftime. He must have missed some. It's like that. He did not mention halftime. I've seen a lot of that out there, that Evan's lying and people getting mad at him for lying. And okay. But that's a very different situation of kicking at halftime than pregame. He never mentioned that. So, but I still, I tend to have faith. And again, it's sort of the same as the other conversations. Tomorrow, what are you going to do? Like, like this dude has a track record of being good. Kickers can go up and down sometimes. For right now and for where they're at, you just go forward and you reevaluate when the season's over. I mean, if it's every week he's missing from inside 50, you have to have different conversations. But they just paid him, okay? So they're not just going to turn their back on him, and I don't see it getting to that type of a point where it's that ugly. You never know, and things can turn. But I still am not totally. I've got always got my panic button here. We're full of props here these days. I've always got my panic button. I'm not hitting it. I'm not hitting it on Evan McPherson. I'm setting it back down, well aware of where it's at, but not hitting it on Evan McPherson.
Yeah, if there was a bunch of misses inside of 50, I think there would be a legitimate reason to panic. But these are plus 50, and he does have the track record. I don't know that it seems like you hit one and it can come back. He can get on a roll again. And then what they're talking about with the confidence in him, it's one thing to say it, but I guess we'll see it when they start crossing the 50-yard line and they get in those situations where normally they might send him out there for a 54-yarder. Are they more likely to go for it rather than trusting him on those long ones? That's where that's going to play out. But I'm with you. He's got enough of a tracker. He's not like these young guys that are just still rising and you're waiting on them to arrive. He arrived as a rookie, and they just don't typically fall off the shelf. Good kickers don't just fall off the cliff like this. They have their ups and their downs. I go back to when Mike Nugent just weirdly lost it out of nowhere, but he was so far into his career. That's not the case with Evan. And I wish we would have asked him. That was the one question that no one asked him when we talked to him outside the locker room yesterday was, does the contract, do you feel more pressure? He said he is feeling a little more pressure because of the slump that I asked him about. Does he still, that's what Darrin raved about his rookie year, how he keeps his heart rate low. He keeps his breathing low. And he said he is feeling a little stressed because of the misses. But I wonder if the contract is in his head a little bit as well.
Only he knows. And so we'll continue to monitor that as well. I see the panic button, not touching it right now.
No.
All right. Maybe, it was a great week, the previous week with the Growler bet, Jay. This week, it was a weird Growler bet because we put it out there originally before T. Higgins got hurt, and we made it non-Jamar Chase T. Higgins receiving yards in this game against the Eagles. And so the whole thing was kind of thrown for a little bit of a loop. And maybe that's partially the reason why we ended up with no winners. The answer was 180 passing yards that weren't to Jamar Chase. Mike Gesicki, the leader in that category. Shout out to Andrew D, who had 176 as his answer. You were so close. Not like 8 O's, so close, but you were so close. We appreciate the effort there. You guys did still bring it. Now, playing the Eagles, some of you went to the band, the Eagles, for this, and there was a consistent theme on a few of those. So I appreciate you guys going to the Eagles. And so we have Take It Easy on the Tension Meter Growler, which was, we mentioned all the different meters and the barometers and those things on Who Dey Light. So appreciate that from Kevin. Tim P with On a Dark Desert Highway, cool wind in my hair, warm smell of a Growler bet rising up through the air. Love that.
Great.
Appreciate that. We have this one now. You know that you can combine the band, the Eagles, and you're going to get love if you go Lebowski. Jesus, man, can you just let me win the Growler? I've had a really rough night, and I hate the effing Eagles, which is a great Big Lebowski reference. So well done. That's my winner for the week. There were more, though. We did have Andrew White wrote us a poem, and we always appreciate when you guys decide to be poetic. He says, losing power, cigarettes fall off a knob, and Jalen Cower Who you gonna call when the prom dress on? Too late, you were sleeping on the play, and Jamar is gone. Measuring sticks and rulers should be put in a drawer. Joey is putting on a haunting at Paycor. Well done. Well done. You referenced my ghost story from Who Dey Light and the measuring devices. A lot of good stuff weaved into that poem. Well done, Andrew White. He also says when we shut it, if Dave is still alive, tell him we don't care if dad is back. Stepdads can always play a small role. So even though Dad Jay is back, we still love Dave, stepdad.
Yeah.
He's been busy on these Tuesdays lately, so we haven't been able to get. Don't worry, He's still bald. He's still part of our family as a stepdad, even though dad is here. Love anytime Dave gets a good shout out. All right. I think that's all of them I have for this week. Oh, no, one more. How could I miss this? So, Always Sunny in Philadelphia also made an appearance in one email, and it was the gang tries a growler bet, which is, of course, the names of so many of their episodes about the gang. And so it has the picture of Charlie. It's pretty famous meme of Charlie with the wild eyes, all red, and all the connecting of the dots between the different scenarios he tries to solve a crime or whatever. You've probably seen that if you've been on the internet before. And it's a wild connection to a million different things to come up with the answer. So I'm going to do my best, Jason D, to try to read this email. So for the receiving yards minus T and Chase, this is going to take some math. Chase Brown is a running back, but can still catch the ball. He's number 30, so we will start with that. But he's also a Canadian and in the CFL. Toronto Argonauts just lost to the Elks 30-31. So if Chase represents the Argonauts, their running back had 32 yards on a Canadian field, which is longer, so we'll average that down to 27 yards for him. Now, Moss is the more likely receiving target, having gained 3 times the yards as Brown, so to put him at 81 yards seems too optimistic. Let's add their total together and divide it in half. The total receiving yards for the running backs. The tight end contribution will be from all Gesicki and Sample, numbers 83, 88, 89, who together have 16 letters in their last name and a spread of 6 numbers in their uniform numbers. So when you multiply that, you get 96, which will be a great day for all 3 of them combined. So let's give it to them. Yosevich is the only receiver we can count on to not be inactive for this growler bet. So we will have to reverse engineer it. Joe Burrow will throw for 315 yards, and we have 54 for the running backs, 96 for the tight ends, which means there are 165 yards left to hand out. Give half of that to T and Chase. Problem solved.
That's pretty good.
Well done, Jason. I appreciate the effort. Appreciate you guys going all in. Well done on that one. So you guys are great. Keep them coming. We appreciate everybody that sends in these submissions. Sorry, there's no winners. We had 3 the previous week, so the average is still in a good place. Run, pass, or boots, Jay. Run, pass, or boot redux. What do we got?
Yeah, we are. We are kind of in the realm of the Bengals right now, where our boots keep coming up as the actual win. So we had 2 of them, and on the first one, I think a lot of people would have had their boot end up being the one, because it was what is most likely to happen. The Bengals commit a turnover because the Eagles had only forced 2 all year. Saquon Barkley, a 35-plus run, or Trey Hendrickson goes sackless, and we both booted Trey Hendrickson. That was not the most likely to happen, and it did happen. Now, Saquon didn't get a 35-yard run either, but the Bengals did have 2 turnovers, so that one didn't go so well for us. The second one was what will be greater: Eagles explosive plays, Eagles first quarter points because they hadn't scored all year in the first quarter, or Eagles third down conversions. The explosives ended up being 8. The third down conversions ended up being 6, and the points, once again, for the 9th game in a row for the Eagles, was 0. I ran with explosives, passed on third down, and booted points, so I nailed it on the nose. Paul, you ran with third down conversions, passed on points, and booted the explosives. You had 2 boots end up winning this week. So
that's great.
That's
what you want. Tough break over here. Okay, let's go. Let's see. We've got. I have to give one more shout out here before we get in to Arby's, and that is we talked about Jay's calendar reminder.
Oh yes,
a week ago, and the tight ends that were just showed up on your calendar, right? And it
Yeah.
said, look at who's the best tight ends
From
a year and a half into their career,
Yep.
right? And really had very little memory of what the hell that means. Like, it just, we did, and we went through it, but we're like, where did this happen? And we got to shout out, this is hardcore. Okay.
Yeah.
This is pretty impressive. Daniel Breitenbach, who sent us a tweet and an email pointing out that, Jay, you set your reminder on April 20th of 2023 during the HTPG draft preview of tight ends and corners. You were speaking at the 40-minute and 35-second mark, and he sent us the Apple Podcast transcript. It was not a conversation with Zach Taylor. It was something that we did on the podcast, and he just remembered it, even to remember that this came from there, and then to find the transcript and send it over. The transcript says, we're talking about tight ends, and you quoted it earlier in the podcast here. These guys, the ones that are the elite, they aren't coming from the first year, and they're coming from the late second day, third day. So it is. We should somehow star this, mark this, write this down, set a reminder on your phone on week 8 of 2024 and go back and see. Remind ourselves that we asked this question and go back and see who it is at that time that has emerged as the guy. And then we did a run, pass, or boot about the Bengals tight ends after that. Daniel, that is incredible memory. That is incredible dedication. And to send that to us, shout out to you. You know what that is, Jay?
Yes. Graders worthy. That is graders worthy big time.
That is big time graders worthy, Daniel. So send us your information. The Graders Shipper 6-pack is coming your way. Because that was just incredible to pull that out. And we did go back through it. And the best tight ends from that class have come from day 2, right? I mean, I guess Kincaid was kind of, but when you talked about some of the numbers, Laporta and some of the other guys were day 2 guys that have been the most impactful thus far.
He answered the question twice because he answered what we were actually talking about. And by including the date of the show being April 20th, it was 420. That explains why I did not remember at all what we talked about.
Calling yourself out.
That's why I don't remember a lot of movies either from my
Sure. So that's great. Shout out to you, Daniel, for that. We also had a Graders worthy winner, a shipper pack that we had at our live show.
Yeah.
We sent a shipper pack out at the live show. You come down, you're gonna get stuff. Taylor Caldwell was our winner of the shipper pack from the live show. So the Graders is out and about. It's that time of year, man. Send Graders to your friends. You can send it anywhere in the United States. Okay. Now, Arby's. Jay, you got some Arby's for me?
Yeah. I have a couple. The one, the what are we doing, the Moe's list. I feel like you gave me one of those on Sunday night because, well, you gave it to me yesterday, but it happened Sunday night because I was just enthralled with this guy on a machine that was washing the white off of the field, off of the Paycor field, the end zone, the middle logo. And I decided I'm going to do a time lapse of him. He had already done one end zone. He'd already done the midfield logo. I was like, I'm going to make a time lapse. I was writing. I wasn't really paying attention to how long it took to actually do each process. And so I was at the stadium till about 10 p.m. Waiting for him to finish that end zone and finish my time lapse. And you asked me yesterday, like, how'd the time lapse turn out? And I told you I was there till 10. And you were incredulous. You could not believe I stayed. Like, what did you do the whole time? And I basically, I worked ahead a little bit, worked on my report card for the next day. I mostly watched the Cowboys 49ers game on my computer on YouTube TV. But I was committed to the video. I don't know if the payoff was worth it, but I did finish the time lapse once the end zone turned from white to orange.
Mine is, there's just certain points where you're just like, oh, we've reached that point. It's at that level, and there's a lot of we've reached that point going on right now because of how quickly things turned on Sunday. But I was dropping my kids off at school, and on my way out, and there's there's a very busy intersection near my kid's school, and so there's crossing guards and an SRO, like the security resource officer, and like there's just people around to kind of make sure everything's okay. And I'm out there at the corner waiting to cross while all the kids are kind of going the other direction, and it's the SRO is immediately like, anybody here able to call plays instead of Zach Taylor? And I'm like, oh man, we've got the small talk at the corner at the crossing guard is taking shots at the play calling now. Like that's the level that we've reached right now is that's immediately where it goes to on Monday morning. So check that milepost off. We're at that part of the season right now where it's just the instant small talk. And he had lots of ideas of play calls that he could do that could help make things better. And I'm sure that's not the only place. I'm guessing there are a lot of corners of this town right now where that's the small talk and where it's starting.
Was he asking the parents dropping kids off to be play callers, or was he asking the actual kids themselves to step in and do it?
I believe he was asking those dads that had just dropped off and were going the other direction. But I think some of the kids that were going in probably were open to answers. I mean, it's just that's certainly what it sounded like. But it was very much throwing his arms up. Like, I'm pretty sure that any of us here could do a better job was the contention. It's like, oh, we've reached that portion of the program. Here we go. All right. It's we're there. We've made it. So, all right. Thanks everybody for listening. I know we went a little long on this one, but there's just a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And you know what? You know what's better than a hug, Jay?
What's that?
Long loving embrace. And I feel like we just held on a little extra today for everybody.
You're welcome.
We're here for you. We won't be the deadbeat dad out back with the TV in the bottle. Okay.
No.
We're here to give you the hug and the money and tell you that if you need anything, we're here. That's us. Okay.
Yeah.
You might have gone to that place 4 times, 6 if you're a preseason person this year, and not gotten the hug or the money that you needed, but we gave it to you.
But unlike most good dads, don't call us if you need bail.
I don't think you should call the stadium either if you need bail. Pretty sure you're not going to get it. So, all right. Thanks everybody for listening. We will talk to you next time. Have a good one.